are going to get rocking today with a rock star. So get ready for Villain Me, Christian artist, member of our military, an incredible man. Benjamin Hyatt's with us today. Let's get started. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you. I was just having this conversation before we started recording. You bumped your video. So you just released a video and I was like, yes, I'm going to watch this. And I wasn't even sure. I'm like, I didn't even really know if he was an artist or not. So I kind of started I know.
Heard
well,
that.
no, I mean,
I've heard that.
social media. It's social media. So when I saw it, I'm like, wait a minute, I got to look at this. And I instantly was like, you know, when people send you stuff, sometimes you're like, oh, that's nice. Well, I started listening and I'm like, whoa. This is really, really good. Like, this is high quality. And I love bringing on up and coming artists. Number one, I love that you're a Christian artist. That's really cool. I think that it is coming into an era, which is so funny because there's a lot of darkness in the world right now, but the Christian movement is also coming into a forefront, because when you have dark, you got to have light. And I think this Christian music was kind of in the background, like, oh, that's nice church music. And I think a lot of people are really getting into it. And I love your voice. I love your sound. You all,
thank you.
Great job. Your video is wonderful. And I do want to talk about your video. So we're definitely going to hit all the stuff about that, but we got to go in. It's called Grit and Grace for a reason. We're not going to talk about today right away. We're definitely going to highlight you and talk about that video because it was really incredible. That video really made me realize you've had an incredible life. Okay. I was reading your bio. I was looking into you a little bit, creeping on you. And I'm like, I want to hear your story. That's why I got really excited yesterday. So first, for our listeners, our viewers, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about where you're from. How did you get started in this world?
Sure. Actually, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, believe it or not, and born in a really all Black neighborhood in a Black hospital. I was the only white baby born that day in Nashville. So I like to believe that God bestowed my rhythm upon me in that fashion, and I've just going through the military, going through the service and everything. I serve with so many different people, of all backgrounds. And the one thing that we know how to do is overcome. We were taught teamwork. We were taught not to elevate self, but to elevate each other. Right. And that's what I believe music is supposed to do today. And I know the video is Villain in Me, but that's what the song Sunshine, which was the other release that accompanied it. That's what it's supposed to do, is bring people together, and it's kind of a Kansas City shout out because that's where I've called home, ever since. And so had some really cool people working with me on this. And anyway, that is what it's supposed to do, is bring us together. So let music be that thing that brings us together,
I absolutely love it. There's a lot of key things that, God puts people in your path for a reason. And, so much of your story, even though I only knew a little bit, I'm like, oh, I can relate to this video, the alcohol. I recently got divorced and it was very heartbreaking. It was very hard. I did it very privately, but I've been talking a little bit about it, but I'm still a little bit private. But alcohol was a big part of our lives, and for me, it just overtook me. And I've been very upfront about it because I want to help people and tell them it's okay. It's not, don't work, don't stress out about it. It's okay to be honest about it, and let's talk about it and let's help you. So, you grew up, you were born and raised in Nashville. You said, shout out to Kansas City. You got into the service. What years were you serving in Iraq? Did you, where were you in the service time?
So 2004, I joined up after I got my degree from University of Central Missouri and criminal justice, and went into the military and did about 3 years, 2 months, and had an injury where doctors tried to fix it 3 times. And anyway, they told me I'd never run again, to make a long story short. And I'm a little stubborn, but getting away from that, that's when I joined up to be with Homeland Security. And that's what you see in the video as well. So I did that for almost 4 more years. But so to get to the spiritual side of things, though, you get knocked down through life. You make the wrong choices, right? Video kind of goes through what servicemen and women go through. And then also that part that you were talking about, the alcohol and stuff. As members of law enforcement, you'd like to get together afterwards and everybody would have a cold one. And peer pressure is a hard thing. But here's the other hard thing, being genuine And that's what I believe in, right? And that's what this video, I'm being very genuine. I'm saying there were issues, right? And that's what a lot of servicemen and women go through. And outside of that, all of us go through. And it tells how we're all connected and how that he is the only answer, you know, and lowering yourself and humbling yourself before him. That's where we find our strength. And when we try to fight battles on our own, we're not enough. We're not enough. And one more thing, it also tells the parallel, the spiritual parallel of saying, you know, they're shining the light and expect our return. It's talking about our kids. And that's to those overseas and stuff fighting the battle, but also on the spiritual side, fighting the battles, the demons inside, right? So it's a parallel. And if we don't make it home, they won't understand that you're just a man and it takes more than a man.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love how okay, so there's a lot of things going on in our society that are very interesting in the last 4 years, right? We had Donald Trump in office, and it seemed like everyone lost their minds.
Yes.
And I'm not
No
going to go
logic.
on too much. Yeah, logic went out the window. So, but one thing that I noticed, and obviously not noticed, it's a big deal. Servicemen, women in police force, and this happened about 8 years ago. The disrespect started to really sink in. This was 8 years ago. This was before Trump. Okay. So this is where I started personally noticing this really big shift towards law enforcement's bad, service people are bad. You know, we did this back in the 70s, you know, 60s, 70s, Vietnam, everybody did the same thing. It's like we go in cycles. I have a lot of respect for our servicemen and women. Okay. I was married, my first marriage, poor me, right? To a Marine. I had the privilege of living on base, although it was for me, I was like, oh my gosh.
I know the privilege.
Yeah. I was 19 with a brand new baby, brand new married, you know, and I was to my husband, and I just was not getting it. But what I did get was the huge respect, and what I saw, these dynamics and how everybody worked together, and it never left me. Something about that was always like, no, 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 no. This is a big deal. Like what these men and women do, you don't get it until you see it. You know, you have to see this. And I just have so much respect. I have tons of friends and family members that have served, are serving, and have been through a lot. PTSD, they've suffered major injuries, and they struggle with depression. And so drugs, drinking, that comes along with it. It's very common. PTSD, you know, doesn't just happen in the service. I actually suffered from it. I never compare myself to a soldier. I always say, I don't even like to say that I suffered with it, but I was diagnosed a couple years ago.
But a military wife is the hardest job in the military. And you know that saying because it becomes true so many times, you know?
Right. Well, so for me, it came in not too long ago, and it came in through a lawsuit. So I had to go through a lawsuit with work, and I couldn't handle any more stress. And so internally, I just internalized it and I drank, but that stress was just eating me alive. I mean, they said I had fibromyalgia. They said I had all these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, my body's shutting down. And then you're adding drinking, right? So it's like these vicious cycles. So if you get injured, like when you talk about your injury, you're like, okay, you're injured, you can't function the same. It probably hurts. Then you've got the emotional damage that happens with, okay, how do I do this? Then you've got, now I'm doing a totally different job. And that's huge and stressful, what you were doing. And everybody's drinking around you too. And then it's a perfect storm. So I can
Yeah.
totally see this. And so let's, if you're open, you don't have to go into details, but
Sure.
obviously it ruins relationships. Alcohol was a huge factor in mine, and I'm not saying it was the only reason, but it definitely played a big role in kind of the deterioration of my marriage. But let's talk about what happened. Kind of, you got into, you know, the Homeland Security. You started pursuing.
Yeah.
Team was there. What happened? What was going on?
So I would say I have to start back at the Army. When I got injured, that really hurts a man's pride. You identify. Before that, I played semi-pro tennis for a little while. I, you know, did every sport there was, and you identify with something. And then sometimes that's when God comes along and says, chop, you can't rely on that anymore, right? And then being stubborn, you continue to try to do that. Like, for instance, me then, you know, joining after a year of physical therapy, trying to be a federal agent with Border Patrol. So that's what I went into, you know, and the fourth doctor was the one that signed my papers, because every other doctor was like, well, you were injured in the service and this is your rating and you can't do this. So the last one said, hey, man, if you want to, you already got injured serving our country. If you want to do it again, by all means. And he signed the test and I became a federal agent. But to skip to the part, early on in our marriage, actually, I believe, and I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to give details,
No.
but the thing is, alcohol did play a major role. And you think it's one of these things that you're just going to have a good time with and that you're going to, just relax the night away with or whatever. And then it becomes a habit, right? And we never had drinking in our home. For me, it was a social thing. If I was out somewhere, I needed that for my anxiety. Right. So the military played a big role. Like I was already anxious. I was homeschooled, which was a great thing. My mom sacrificed a lot. She believed in God and wanted me to learn how to actually, live. And, but so that stuck with me. It says when you plant the seed, when they're older, they will not depart from it. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, my mom's a praying mom and she's still praying back some of her kids, So, but it's like the story of the prodigal son, it's the grace that he gives us that allows us to come home, and going through that trial with my wife and my kids, which all three kids are in the video, the villain and me. Those are my three kids, and my oldest lives with me full time and the other two are every other weekend, and we've made it work. And she married a great guy who's also former military, and I could share some funny stories about that. But anyway, so we've made it work, and only through God's grace have we been able to redeem that relationship, and our kids still have both of us in their lives. And that's what I released music under Benjamin Hyatt, on Spotify and all that stuff. And that's what the whole first album was about, Without You, The Way You Move. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm releasing music under Benjamin Hyatt Band, and that's The Villain in Me and Sunshine and such. But it's a story of redemption, and everybody makes mistakes, right? We have to also have the grace to forgive mistakes. And, without pointing blame, everybody knows that every relationship has two ways, right? And it doesn't mean one person wasn't ultimately responsible or whatever, but you don't have to get that deep. We all know that we have to look inside first and realize we're all made the same and we all have demons, and only he can help us through that.
Absolutely. I think it's incredible. It's interesting when people can come in and share, like when you're going through the storms. Isn't it funny when you're going through the storms and you're like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. What is he guiding me to? Like I always ask. I pray all the time, all day, all night. It's like I look forward to it because my communication, my time with God is important. So I always kind of smile because I'm like, I remember praying about this last year, and now look, and I can see it now. And we have to practice patience. And so interesting, patience, grace, all the things, because if you can just let it go, if you can let him lead, it will come out. And in the storms that we go through, the alcohol, the marriage, the things that we have to get through, injuries and, these big bumps in the road. And you're like, oh my gosh, why? Like, why? Because we think we know best. We think we know best. And then when we finally just let go and surrender, it's amazing what happens in our life. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. Like, stop pushing back, let it happen, and don't be afraid. And fear is insane. Like, fear will stop you from, and I have fears, like, and I have to stop myself. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't real. Stop. You have to like get yourself centered again. And I get it. So absolutely fabulous new singles. Loved Sunshine as well. I was listening to that. I'm like, that's a fun one, like country. Like, I was like, this little country. I love that. I love that you tapped into the country. So I love rock and roll. Okay. But I'm also a huge country fan. Like, it's so funny because people don't see it all the time, but I've been listening to tons of Travis Tritt lately, and I was getting back to my 90s like music.
Yes, that's my era.
Garth, and I love like really old country too. So who are your inspirations for music? Let's talk about that. Who are your biggest inspirations?
So when you talk about 90s country, it was Garth Brooks, and Tim McGraw, of course, I'm an Indian outlaw, all that stuff that maybe you couldn't even do nowadays. You know what I mean?
Probably not.
And and Michael W. Smith in the Christian world, Steven Curtis Chapman is my ultimate songwriting genius, I believe. And his heart with God, you can hear it in all of his music, So those were the guys. And then Boys to Men gave me an influence. Hootie and the Blowfish was the first non-Christian band that I listened to. And it really influenced me a lot, and I remember a story. We got on the bus. I went to a Christian school one year because we were a military family. Mom was Navy, Dad was a Marine. And anyway, the kids got on the bus. We were only allowed to bring Christian music. He handed the bus driver a CD. Back then it was CDs, and he said, what is this, son? He said, this Hootie and the Jesus Fish. And so he got them to play Darius Rucker, Hootie and the Blowfish while we traveled. Anyway.
That's and the Christian fish that's cute. Yeah. That's cute. Yeah. I actually went to Hootie and the Blowfish concert.
Did you?
I am a massive concert goer. So I have gone to, I would have to say, over 100 concerts in my life, but I've seen them all. I mean, and it's like every genre. Like I have I'm not partial to anything. Like I'm like, I'll go to that. I've seen Greenwood. My grandma brought me to Lee Greenwood. I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it. God bless the I mean,
yeah. I so prevalent right now.
Yeah, like I love so many different types of music. I have so much fun at concerts. What was your first concert, number one, and then what was your favorite concert?
Carmen. Do you remember Carmen? He did a thing with DC Talk.
Okay, yeah.
Addicted to Jesus. My mom and dad, they were in Bible college, and so that's all we could listen to was Christian music. First concert was Carmen. It was really amazing, and that's when I met DC Talk, who's now Toby Mac is the biggest act from that group, and Michael Tate is the leader of Newsboys.
Okay.
And Kevin Max is doing his own thing as well. But anyway, they were my biggest influence, probably DC Talk. And then I started listening to a little bit of secular music, but that, again, my mom's teaching, the foundation, stuck with me. And even my kids nowadays, they listen to mostly Christian, and we teach them, of course, it's fine to listen, but you got to be judged by your conscience. And, the things that we listen to are very powerful.
Music is very powerful.
Yeah.
Very
can
powerful.
Bring people together or tear us apart,
Correct. It's very interesting. So let's get into some social stuff. I have a lot of social stuff on my mind. I've been really looking at, like, it's just interesting to watch sometimes, like how things have shifted, like the societal norms and the new norms and all these things. And I have a really hard time. Now, I've listened to terrible music. I've listened to wonderful music. I'm not going to sit and say I've only listened to Christian music, because I haven't. I'm a Motley Crue girl. I'm sorry. It's terrible. but I mean, I've listened from everything from like Two Live Crew, which is so bad. But I'm listening to some of these, and that's way back in the day. I don't really listen to much of that anymore. But some things I've noticed, like the artists are trying so hard to gain attention after kind of Hollywood and artists really dropped during this pandemic, right? Because nobody was going to concerts, and you started watching them trying to get attention. And it was attention in the worst of worst ways. And
by any means possible.
Cardi B is one, and there's, what's his name? He wore Satan shoes, and it was just a mess. And he made out with Satan on stage or in a video. And I'm like, is this where we're at? That you have to do this? We already know you worship the devil. It's very but it's not. But they're trying to make this a normal. Okay, this is another thing that's trying to get made normal. Let's make Satan good, and but what happened? And if you really pay attention, all the music shows crumbled. The ratings dropped dramatically with the lesbian action on stage with Cardi B and whatever her name is, Megan Thee Stallion. I thought that was trash. What are we doing? I think a Saturday Night Live had the individual I was talking about. Ratings plummeted. These people are not getting the attention they wanted. So everybody's like grasping, thinking, well, let's do this and let's do this. And it's like, Yeah, it's not working because the majority of people don't want this. And I think
Yeah.
because people are quiet, conservative, quiet, people think that they don't care. And it's like, but the ratings speak louder than words. The Where the money's going speaks louder than words. And these companies are quickly learning we are aligning ourselves and it's not going to work. Like Nike did not approve that, but did they? Because when they saw how bad the backlash got, they instantly dropped the hammer on it. And it was like, yeah, it doesn't work. I don't think I'm going to buy another pair of Nikes again anyways. I don't even care. And it's just because I can't do it. Like this is not the kind of world I want to live in. This is wild. So how do you feel about artists that are going to these extreme, like, wow, like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like I don't get crazy about it. I'm like, all right, so now we're doing these songs and holy cow. But the problem is you can do whatever song you want, but here's what my view is. Our kids are being told that that's women empowerment, that song.
Mm.
And I find that highly interesting because I'm like, that is the least thing from women empowerment, the least of it. So the messages are what I'm concerned with. You can do whatever you want. You want to produce a crazy song, go produce it. It doesn't matter. If someone buys it, buys it. But when the world and the media starts telling people and giving these messages that are like way off base, that's where I'm like, that is not what that is. And that's where we have to really be careful with our kids and be open and honest and be like, hey, that is crazy. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that because it's really been a hot topic.
Well, I think that if we continue to let the government decide what our kids are taught, then we're going to have problems, and if parents don't stand up and reach out, my kid got the privilege of going to a really good kind of country-ish school where, teacher to kid ratio, and they kind of did their own thing, and he was blessed in that way. But I think that parents standing up is what needs to happen in the first place, because the schools have become like just a liberal breeding ground, I was listening on Tucker Carlson the other night. John Voight was on, and I don't know if you caught any of that interview, but people. It seems that we complain a lot nowadays. Our parents went through a lot too. They sacrificed a lot for us. But John Voight was saying, one day he found himself on the floor, and he was like, "It's so hard," kind of hitting the ground or something. It's so hard. Then he heard a voice in his ear, and it said, "It's supposed to be hard," And he's like, "What? What is this?" And then, but the reason I say that is the villain in me, again, the video kind of shows that God uses pain to push us to redemption, and it's not a destructive pain unless you make it one, and we do that so many times, but he uses pain to put us in that place. And it's actually all through the Bible, the children of Israel, you see it, God uses pain because their hearts were right sometimes, and then they would look to the left or to the right and lose where they're going, just like we do. That's a parallel for our spiritual lives, and so anyway, the point is you got to give it all to him, like you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what'll turn our country around.
It will. And I don't want to put any pressure because I know how it's like, well, I said this. We want to be careful on what we say, but also be true to what we feel. Like I don't like to hold back too much. But I think we are seeing a really positive shift. I think there's some big things coming in the world over the next few weeks and months that are going to rock the world. I think the world's going to get flipped on its head again because there was a lot of things going on and the truth is coming out. The truth always gets revealed. And I'm ready for it. I think the world is ready for truth. I think everyone can handle it. I think it's interesting the UFO thing came out. I bring it all the time. I'm like,
I was about to ask if that's what you're
referring
to.
The UFOs were real. Come on. I mean, everybody knew. Now the government says it is, so now we believe it. No, we already believed it. It was not shocking. Nobody cared. Everyone was like, cool, we know. And it was like, move forward. People can handle the truth. Same with Christianity. It's like Christianity kind of put a veil on it. I mean, when we talk religion and we talk faith, two different things. Religion is organized, it's a church. The church,
just like politics.
Yeah, just like politics. Religion's just like politics. They kept things hidden. They didn't want to show things because they thought people couldn't handle it. And then people rebelled, and we had wars, and we had crusades, and we had all the things, right? And so now we come into a time that is so revealing. We come into a time that is ready for Christian music to get into the forefront, where I feel that you're going. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the album. Let's talk about what's coming. I want to hear all about this. The video is beautiful, by the way. I totally understood it. I love that your kids were in it. You were very vulnerable in it. It was beautiful. Great song.
Thank you. Thank you.
So anyone listening or watching this, please listen. And if you're not a Christian music fan, that's okay. Trust me, you will like this. The voice, everything about it, and Sunshine was really great too. If you like country, it was super good. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about that inspiration. What are your plans? What's happening next for you and the band, and your goals?
Well, the band is kind of at a crossroads. On Memorial Day, no grudge held, but 3 guys walked out of the band. And I thought it was so ironic for the type of video that we were releasing. And so these 3 other guys jumped in from 902 Studio, who also worked on the video. So, it turned out to be really good. Mike Severo and Scott Vandruff from 902 Studio 902 KC. And they jumped in and played bass and drums. And then we got another guy, Brett Palmer, from another band in Kansas City, Dead Man's Hand, to jump in and help us out. So several of the guys are going to continue on with the band, and some are not because they have full-time jobs like myself, but can't really do any more right now, that type of thing. So whatever God wants, that's what's going to happen. But we're going to continue on if we have to, replace a few people. But they did an awesome job at the Uptown Theater at our show, at the video release party, which you can find online as well on YouTube. But the Villain in Me release party with Benjamin Hyatt Band. So, but the next song after Sunshine, which we're getting this guy, A.Y. Young right now, he's trying to put a feature, lay some bars on the Sunshine track. Sure. On the live show, I do a little rap, and I'm going to have a guest featured rapper, and I won't drop any more names of who he works with, but it'd be a really cool thing if it happens, and so he's planning on doing it right now. So, and then I have a song called Waves, which is going to be the next release that's not out yet. So, and that one is just a really pretty, I just released a teaser on Instagram, it was like, you could be enough for me. Are you just a fantasy? I think I found my melody standing right in front of me. Your love could be my remedy for guilt that's been condemning me. Your eyes a never-ending sea with waves of generosity. With waves of generosity. With waves of generosity. Anyway, a little teaser.
I love it.
Thank
okay.
You.
So you were talking about a rapper. We won't bring it up, but I will bring up a huge rapper that just converted to Christianity, Kanye West.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. When you talk about somebody, we love that though. That's what this is all about. It doesn't matter who you are, God will take you in, right?
Yeah.
I've always liked I always thought Kanye was extremely talented. I didn't like Kanye. I'll say that better. Very rough. He was it was tough sometimes, the things he would say and do. And when he converted, I was like, this is the one guy that could really turn it around. And he's done some pretty incredible things. So I am impressed with some of the things he's done. Take out his personal life. I don't judge. I try not to look at that, but it is really refreshing to see a massive star do it and fully do it. Like, I'm embracing this. And here it is. And he's doing it at churches. He's bringing people into the church. The communities needed this. They needed it. They really did. So it's really nice to see. So exciting times. Is this a Christian rapper? Is this a mainstream rapper? Give us a little teaser.
Yeah, no, it's actually, he grew up in Kansas City as well. And I didn't grow up here. Well, I kind of did 8th grade and on, but he really, he's given his heart. It's called the Battery Tour. And he uses this battery, so he's into climate change and such, those kind of actions as well, and he uses this battery to power all of his shows. Battery Tour, and it's A.Y. Young. But if he decides to put it on here, it'll be a real interesting thing. Otherwise, we'll release, a version with me rapping it myself. But we hope that he decides to work with us, and it'll be a real fun one.
Well, that is so cool. That's so cool. Well, I'm excited for you. I know you sent us a bunch of links. We're going to post them. We are going to get you up. We're going to have a little short for you. Anything you want to say to anyone who, is looking to follow you? How can they follow you real quick? We're still going to post everything, but where can they go to find your stuff? What can they be looking for? Keywords. Let's do it, because your music is beautiful. You got me right away. It didn't take me 2 seconds. And I was like, you need to be on the show. We need to highlight you. We need to get you here. So let's
appreciate it.
To everyone here, how can they find you and how can they start listening right away?
So anywhere you search Benjamin Hyatt Band, you'll find the 2 new singles. But also, I don't know if this was a mistake or not. We decided to start releasing music under Benjamin Hyatt Band, but I released the first album and a couple singles under just Benjamin Hyatt. So you have to search both to find all the music. But the first 2 are probably the ones you want to hear first anyway. You'll fall in love with it, hopefully, and then you'll go back and listen to the old catalog. The old catalog was The Way You Move, and it was really all about my divorce and all that stuff. And that's where I really understood. I connected people with the music through, it's not the most complicated music in the world. It's not about that. It's about the passion and the soul and what we go through, and that's what I try to bring out, because we're all made the same. We're all equal, and it's up to us to decide how we live,
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it.
Oh, but I'm sorry. Let me finish. The Benjamin Hyatt Band anywhere, Spotify, Twitter, Facebook. Hit us up on Facebook and follow us on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. Spin Up Music, which I believe is Universal's distribution platform. You can go find the site, Spin Up Music, Benjamin Hyatt Band. But I think enough about me.
We're going to post all the links too, and we're so grateful to have you on. It's been an absolute honor. I'm so excited that you bumped your post. Like, it's so crazy how it worked, because I was going to watch and then I got distracted and was sitting last night, happened to be sitting and just ready to go to bed, and boop, there it was. And I got to listen and watch, and I was like, oh, wow.
Thank you.
Great. So y'all, I love music. This is excellent music. A little bit of country, a little bit of everything mixed into one. It's beautiful. So make sure you catch them out.